If you are a fan of Patrick Boyle, I'm going to show you how he misled you, he manipulated you. He hid two key details from the SpaceX IPO documents, from what's going on in SpaceX's future, and he distracted you with magic tricks and lies and deceit and old stories that don't really mean anything. For my regular audience, we will get to the AI stocks report later in this video, but I want you to understand it's important when you believe in a company and you're thinking about investing in that company. It's important to not just pay attention to the good side of the story. You've got to look at the criticism. You've got to understand the criticism. You've got to break it down and you're going to say, maybe there's merit, because not everything that Patrick Boyle says is wrong. There are issues with the way the IPO is set up, but he ignores the tremendous short-term and medium-term and long-term growth story. He deceives people about the total addressable market. So we're going to dive into that. Then we're going to do our AI stocks report. Are you ready? Let's go.
The SpaceX prospectus is similarly unconventional. The document is also filled with phrases that I'm fairly confident have never appeared in an SEC filing before.
This is going to be fun because he doesn't even capture half of how good this is.
Under the business strategy section, management explains that their primary objective is to extend the light of consciousness to the stars, a phrase that appears 10 separate times in the filing.
The point about it appearing 10 separate times in the filing is dumb. These documents are repetitive. A lot of things are repeated multiple times just because you have the same paragraph in three different places. So that's not really meaningful.
That we do not want humans to have the same fate as dinosaurs, which is a fair point, I suppose. The document then goes on to outline a string of future business lines that read like science fiction. Long haul point to point terrestrial travel, which I think means traveling around the Earth in rockets rather than in airplanes. In-orbit manufacturing, passenger and cargo transportation to the moon and Mars, manufacturing and energy production on the moon and Mars, and asteroid mining.
That he's actually understating how audacious the S1 filing is, the IPO document is. They're talking about establishing terawatt scale annual AI compute growth. Establishing a civilization on Mars. He didn't mention establishing a civilization on Mars. Establish a sustainable lunar presence, long-term human survival beyond Earth, a resilient, perpetually expanding spacefaring civilization, and propelling us to Kardashev Type 2 status, a civilization that harnesses the full energy output of our sun. It is way big. This guy is so small-minded that he's not able to grasp how much bigger SpaceX is actually reaching than he can't even process this. He identifies some little tiny thing and says, "Oh, that sounds strange." Like, no, the whole document is full of this stuff. And it's because they mean it. It's how the company was founded. It's how everyone in the company thinks. I know people in this company. I know people who intend to go to Mars. Right? They want, the people in SpaceX want to go to Mars. They want to go to the moon. They want to accomplish these things. They are working towards these goals, and he doesn't get it.
You probably think of it as a rocket company. With the rapid expansion of Starlink, you might have updated that to a satellite internet company. If you read the IPO prospectus, SpaceX is now apparently an AI company.
SpaceX is more of an AI company at this point than they are a space company, right? They're going to be a space AI company with the space AI satellite.
93% of the company's total addressable market is attributed to AI.
I want to break down this total addressable market thing because I think a lot of people missed it. These are the numbers from the S1 filing, from the IPO document, of what they see the total addressable market is. And over here, you have this huge number for enterprise applications. And he's making a big deal about them claiming this enterprise applications thing is an insane number. And when you add up the total number, it's $28 trillion. This is not necessary to sustain a $2 trillion valuation, let's say, for SpaceX. This is not saying we're going to make $22.7 trillion from enterprise applications. This is not saying we're going to make $28 trillion in revenue in the future. That's not the claim. The claim is the market for AI and enterprise applications from all providers is potentially $22.7 trillion. and that SpaceX may capture some of that market. From what we can see today, and if you read through the document, they do not claim, for example, that Grok is the best AI model. And by the way, Grok is not that bad, but they're not claiming this, that they're going to get the majority of this, 90% of this, 10, they're not making any claims about that. It's simply that's the size of the market and they're going to try to get some of it. If they get 5% of $22 trillion market, that's still pretty good. We don't know. But this is the important part here. Space-enabled solutions, Starlink broadband, and Starlink mobile. Why are these important? And the AI infrastructure is important too, but why are these important? Do you see why these are important? These are important because connectivity, $1.6 trillion, they're dominant. SpaceX Starlink is dominant. They are the dominant player. They have first mover advantage. They have 10,000 roughly satellites in space. Nobody else with a network has more than like, I don't know, 50, 100. They have 100 times as many satellites as anybody else, maybe 200 times as many, and they're launching faster and they're developing their technology faster and they have lower cost in manufacturing their own satellites because they're not outsourcing the manufacturing. They have their own factory to make the satellites. They make their own Starlink antennas for consumers. They do a lot of this stuff in house, so they eliminate a lot of cost margin that others have to pay. They get favorable launch pricing from themselves, right? They pay launch costs instead of, they might pay $15 million a launch, but other people pay $50 million a launch. And then space enabled solutions. They're the dominant launch provider on Earth. They're launching about 80, 90% of mass to orbit. So it's this section here, which is about $2 trillion together. We'll get to AI infrastructure in a second, but it's this section here. If you get 80% of this market, then you're worth way more than $2 trillion. And don't forget, Starlink is in the long run, 70, 80% margin. That's crazy. The launch business may or may not be high margin. We're not sure about that. That's hard to say. But the Starlink business is very high margin. Once you get the satellites up and running, you're talking about a $1.6 trillion market. It doesn't cost them that much to put the satellites up. It doesn't cost that much to operate everything. And then you get to the AI infrastructure, which is 2.4 trillion. They built Colossus and Colossus 2. They made a deal with Anthropic for these are the two details, by the way. I told you at the beginning of the video there were two details that he hid from you. And he pointed over here at these shiny objects, and he left out this part here. These are the two details: Starlink and AI infrastructure. I'm not even getting to the launch stuff, but the launch stuff too. So there's really three details. They dominate the launch industry. They dominate this industry, and they are very competitive in this industry, and they are growing faster than everyone else. So what did they do with Anthropic? A $15 billion a year deal for maybe 600 megawatts of compute. And what's coming? What's coming is, and I did another video about this, they're going to raise this 75, $80 billion from the IPO. Maybe it's more than that. They're going to raise all this money from the IPO. What are they going to do with that money? They're going to invest it in more terrestrial data centers. They were very clear about that in the document. Right here at the bottom, as we continue to scale our terrestrial compute infrastructure to support internal model development, training, and inference workloads, we intend to sell our high performance compute capacity to a limited number of third-party customers. Well, if you're going to make a compute cluster that's 10 times as powerful as the one you just built and sold space on, then you might 10x your revenue. So you might go from $15 billion a year in revenue on that one to $150 billion a year on the next one, plus the 15 billion. So you really got an 11x. And it might be more than that because Vera Rubin is so much more token efficient. Better tokens per watt, better tokens per cost of install. So Vera Rubin, the next Vera Rubin data center, may be much, much more powerful and sell for much, much more value, building much, much more revenue for SpaceX. So SpaceX is actually an AI company. They also have rockets and they also have satellites.
And based on the capital expenditure breakdown, roughly 60% of all spending is now going into artificial intelligence infrastructure.
In reality, going forward, you're going to see a higher percentage going to AI infrastructure. The launch CapEx doesn't need that much. The Starlink CapEx doesn't need that much. It's the AI infrastructure that requires the CapEx in order to be able to build these monster data centers that are going to generate even more revenue at very high margins that enable the company to fund all the other things it wants to do for future growth. He doesn't get that. He doesn't really care. And I'll tell you that later.
The space division lost $662 million. The connectivity division, which is Starlink, turned a $1.1 billion profit. The AI division lost $2.5 billion in just the last 3 months. The only division that makes money is the satellite internet business.
This is a perfect example of where he's deliberately misleading you, where he hid a key fact from you at that moment. Yes, it's true that last quarter the AI division was losing money. But right now we know they've got a contract with Anthropic that's going to generate $15 billion a year in revenue. And if you understand the economics of data centers, you understand this is a very high margin, high profit business to be in. Going forward, AI is more than half of the revenue of the company, and it is profitable. But he's misleading here. Now, is he misleading you on purpose? This is for the Patrick Boyle fans. This is obvious. You know, he mentions it elsewhere in the video, the contract with Anthropic. He knows that. So did he deliberately mislead you about the profit story? He knows that the AI company is now profitable. He knows that the AI division of the company is now profitable. And he lied to you and he told you that it isn't. Why did he do that? Why is he lying about Starlink? Why is he lying about XAI, the AI division of the company?
When Musk says that this is an AI company, what he means is that the one business that actually works is subsidizing a money losing AI venture, while he tries to convince public market investors that the money losing AI venture is the entire reason the company's worth $1.75 trillion.
I just played that clip for you so it's clear. He's not soft pedaling that. He is claiming persistently that the AI division of the company is losing money in the face of knowledge that they have a new $15 billion a year contract with Anthropic, in the face of almost certain knowledge that that contract is highly profitable for the AI division of the company and for SpaceX as a whole. He's lying. So let's start addressing who Patrick Boyle really is. Patrick Boyle is an author. He has some degree of fame. He has a very successful YouTube channel. But what does he publish? Derivatives for the trading floor, statistics for the trading floor. He's a trader. He's not a long term investor. He has not made an effort to understand what the SpaceX business is. He has not made an effort to understand the long term investing philosophy that you and I might have about why we'd invest in SpaceX or why we'd invest in Tesla or any other AI company. He does not appear to have made an effort to understand what's happening with artificial intelligence, which is critical. He doesn't understand Starlink. He doesn't understand the growth of Starlink. That's the other thing that he misled you about, is that Starlink is growing very fast. The profit story from Starlink is going to be huge. If you guys follow me, you know that I'm working with AI. I use AI to help me build this channel. The video clip you saw on the side at the beginning, I made that with AI this morning while I was lying in bed. I made part of it with Grok Imagine and part of it with Google Gemini. I work closely with AI, number one, because it just helps me in general in life, but it also helps me make these videos. And I use it to help me build Thai language learning apps and Japanese language learning apps. So I've started using Grok Build and I've used ChatGPT Codex. I have paid accounts with Grok, with ChatGPT, with OpenAI, and with Gemini, with Google Gemini now. I am working very hard to understand what's happening with AI, because if I want to understand the future of what's happening as a long-term investor in AI companies, I need to do that research myself. I need to understand what's happening. He's not doing that. He's a trader. He's not a long-term investor. He's not a coder. He's not an AI guy. He's not interested in any of that. He's interested in two things. He's interested in making money trading, and he's interested in making money selling you lies. That's Patrick Boyle. I'm not going to bore you with the rest of the video, but I would encourage you to watch it for yourself. Watch any criticism. He has one other video where he ripped apart SpaceX. He has a recent video where he was interviewed where he talked about SpaceX. He tries to rip them apart. And really what he does in the rest of the video is attack Elon Musk's character, attack things like SpaceX buying Cybertrucks. And there are legitimate criticisms of how the IPO is structured, how the corporation is structured, that there's no independent directors. There are some legitimate criticisms in there. And we all know this, by the way. If you are an investor in an Elon Musk company, you know Elon runs the company. Now, in this particular company, he's asserted even more power. He's taking even more control of that company. It's going to be even harder for people to sue to stop the company from doing something they don't like. But if you're a long-term Tesla investor, you know when Delaware let people sue Tesla, it was a huge distraction from the company, and it cost us as shareholders a lot of money for lawyers' fees. So Elon made the practical decision, let's locate in Texas and let's structure this thing so it's much harder to sue us. If you don't believe that Elon is interested in the welfare of humanity, if you don't believe he's interested in doing great things and making the world a better place, then don't invest in his companies. It's that simple. If you believe in him, and if you look at what he's doing with Neuralink, it's just one example. Does this guy know about Neuralink? Does any of the critics of Elon Musk, and they'll talk about his character, have you looked at Neuralink? So I don't want to beat this dead horse. He's a liar. He was dishonest. He misled you. If you are a regular potential SpaceX investor, I strongly encourage you. It's like 30 minutes long. Yeah, he'll make a little bit of money on ad dollars, and maybe you'll support his sponsor, but it is worth understanding his perspective. And I would encourage you to seek out other voices who are critical of the SpaceX IPO before you invest in it. Same thing with Tesla, same thing with any other company. There is a valuable lesson here that you want to get out. You want to listen to what these people say. But when you catch them lying, you have to start saying, okay, maybe I don't need to listen to a whole lot more this guy says. I want to turn to the AI stocks report. So let's get into that. The AI stocks report, these are the numbers for the end of the week. We're heading into Tuesday after a long weekend. The AISRX, the AI stocks report index, the main index was up 2.76% for the week. I've now added charts for the AISRY secondary index. I had to take Samsung out because I can't pull accurate stock prices from Samsung. Marvell stock up huge that week. Micron Technology, Aristanet up huge. These are networking and memory companies. And AMD and ASML were up strongly in the week. A lot of this is just volatility. But let's dive into what's going on with AI stocks as we head into the week of May 26th. The first thing I want to talk about is I got a really good comment on YouTube on my post. There's a community section of my YouTube channel page, and I did a post about my bottleneck video. And this comment came in from Captain ROC. As you can see, it's in Chinese. This isn't Japanese. This isn't Korean. This is Chinese. But I translated it to English so I could help you understand it and help me understand it, of course. It's a complete ranking about the current severity and resolution timeline for AI supply chain bottleneck risk ranking. This is a topic that I've been talking about. I'm obsessed with supply chain and AI right now. There's so many different layers, and he actually exposed me to more I didn't know about. HBM memory, highest risk. HBM memory is a big issue. CoWoS, that's the packaging, is a big issue. Advanced process wafers, these are issues I was aware of. Then you've got T-glass glass substrate. Currently, high quality glass cloth is dominated by Japanese manufacturers and is the only material capable of meeting the stringent tolerances of AI level hardware. I knew there were elements of the supply chain that were in Japan. I didn't know how critical they were. That's a critical issue. EUV equipment, that's ASML. That was what my video was about. We know that. Power data centers to power supply. We've been talking about that. Drew Baglino may have a solution with Heron Power that will go into Elon's next exacluster. We talked about that in that video. Substrate, ABF carrier. That's something to learn about. Mature process wafers, another kind of wafer issue. High level engineering talent, huge issue. And he summarizes it. He has a nice summary. Micron sits at the core of the number one bottleneck, which is a moat, not a risk, provided that number three TSMC wafers and CoWoS do not block overall AI accelerator growth. I don't agree with that. I do agree with the proviso. There's so many different layers of the supply chain that affect so many different things. If there's a problem somewhere else in the supply chain that affects demand for your memory chips, it's a problem. If there's a problem in your supply chain for memory chips, there's a problem. Even Micron is at risk. Worth paying attention to. It's probably easier to just pause the video and look here and just take notes. And really, it's this summary right here. If you just screenshot this right here and take a look at that and think about it, you get a better understanding of the supply chain. To me, The AI supply chain is extremely fragile, not to the extent of like shutting everybody down, but if it just stops growth. If there's a problem in the supply chain that's enough to stop growth or reduce growth, huge effect on the companies that are priced for the most growth, like AMD in particular. So, we're just going to do a quick summary of the news for the week and the buzz going forward. NVIDIA had some issues with Supermicro Company about compliance and quality controls. Taiwan detained some individuals over alleged fraudulent declarations and smuggling of AI servers. And Huang also commented on NVIDIA's $200 billion AI chip market forecast. It could include Chinese buyers despite ongoing export restrictions. I'm seeing some news about China going another way on chips. I think it's very early yet to figure out where exactly it's going. I saw some news about Huawei may have some new chip technology. Tesla issued a recall for about 14,000 Model Y SUVs. This is a drop in the bucket. They raised prices on certain Model Y variants and shifted full self-driving to subscription only in Europe. Reported a surprise strong sales day in Norway that boosted near-term sentiment. Volatility, volatility, volatility. Some quick Wall Street buzz. Wall Street still digesting NVIDIA's strong earnings report. Raised outlook while monitoring Dell and Costco reports for fresh AI spending confirmation. Analysts actively lifting price targets. We've talked about their analyst price targets last week. Investors on Tesla are focused on robotaxi and energy storage progress as key near-term drivers. It's mostly volatility, and we're waiting for robotaxi to get started, but we'll see. Short trading week is dominated by inflation data and consumer earnings, so that may be a bigger issue for everybody. TSMC continues to benefit from robust demand. Wall Street watching, no news there, volatility. AMD riding post earnings momentum. This is the king of volatility right now. They've been up, they've been down, they've been up again. They had a good earnings report and they went crazy, and we'll see. ASML got some new price target hikes. Everything looks good for ASML as long as they can keep their supply going. Palantir, big watch item, options activities elevated. Wall Street's waiting for acceleration signals. To me, this is all, I'm just telling you the buzz. To me, it's just all volatility, volatility, volatility. Broadcom drawing attention for its custom AI silicon and networking strength. That's not changed. The secondary networking companies were up a lot. Broadcom wasn't up as much, but it's in the same, that's part of Broadcom's business is that networking, Marvell Networks and AristaNet. Broadcom's in that same category. Alphabet or Google riding post IO momentum, new AI agent and search enhancements. I will say, I thought the quality of the Gemini Omni video was very good, better than Grok, but I only got to make 2 videos before I reached my limit. Interesting little dispute there. Like who's better? Well, it's obvious that you can get more with Grok. And maybe, and I'm not saying it was a lot better, it was a little better. I just want to touch on that Huawei story a little bit more before we close, that they said they have a new technology in 5 years, underscoring Beijing's effort to neutralize US sanctions that have made it hard for China to build cutting edge chips. 5 years? 5 years is a very, very long time. In a semiconductor symposium in Shanghai, they said its high end chips will have transistor density equivalent to 1.4 nanometer processes by 2031. They didn't provide independent performance data. 2031. This is 1.4 nanometers coming like in a year or two in the West. So that means this actually means that China is way behind, not that China is catching up. This is I would almost say troubling for China. This is getting a lot of attention, like it's strong news for China and bad news for America. Like that's not good news. Huawei unveiled a new principle for improving chips, noting the industry can no longer rely on shrinking transistors. The Tau scaling law, as the principle is called, focuses on cutting the time it takes signals and data to move through chips and computing systems. I think that the West is doing all kinds of efforts. I mentioned optical connects on the chips on the in the networking. There's all kinds of efforts that are being made at all levels. I don't see anything shocking here. Reuters, this is a Reuters story. They may not know what they're talking about. I don't think it's something and Huawei is a company that I watch. Huawei is a company, it's on our secondary list. There's no stock traded to watch, but I keep an eye on Huawei. I keep an eye on Xiaomi. I think they're important companies to keep an eye on. Xiaomi is on our stock list to see where they're at. Are any of the Chinese companies making breakthroughs that matter? This does not seem to be one of them to me from what I read. Maybe there's something more there that I'm missing, and I would encourage you, as always, dig into the story yourself, see if you can find something more. Thanks so much for watching.